All right, listen to me carefully. You have this stuxnet false flag launched. They're now using it as a pretext to have even more Pentagon Homeland Security control over the entire infrastructure of the Internet and over all applications that are used on the Internet. That's what's in the Cybersecurity Act. And it only announces in the Act what's already been done, what's already been engineered in. It was DARPA that funded the creation of the Internet. It was DARPA that funded much of what modern IBM has done the last 40 years and Microsoft in the last 30-plus years. And that's why this is so dangerous, because they're reporting that it has a zero-date exploit, meaning they discovered it after it was already launched, so they couldn't create a patch. It's already out there and changing. It's very sophisticated, and it has the core programming, the secret codes, basically, of Microsoft, and they've never had a worm that was able to basically exploit the secret inner workings, is the way IT people are describing it. And this shows you down the road, when the Pentagon talks about Internet dominance and shutting down anybody that criticizes the world government and anybody that criticizes the big mega banks that run this, that under the Cybersecurity Act, it takes high school students, college students, as part of the National Compulsory Service Act and makes them become trained operatives of the federal government. They're basically just taking the general public and turning them into spies to, quote, then go out and attack enemies of the United States, when the globalists are actually our arch enemies from within, and to hack and to write worms and to go out and post on message boards and to stir up trouble and infighting. It's a full spectrum of different types of attacks, propaganda attacks, hack attacks, worm attacks. And it gives you an example of how the globalists can shut down large portions of the web whenever they want, and they can have their spies that are embedded in every major government, these corporate global spies that work through governments, can go in and basically sabotage any key infrastructure they want, and then come out and say, oh, we don't know who did this, give us more power. But in this case, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, Bloomberg, that we played a clip of earlier, the full clip's up at prisonplanet.com right now, they just come right out and say, yeah, this looks like Israel. You got a guy from the Chertoff group that basically speaks for Israel telling you that he thinks it's Israel and the experts think it's Israel, just as an open threat, a stick in the eye. And then simultaneously, you can type into Google, stuxnet worm, why we need cybersecurity. And they're all over the news, media pundits, government operatives, shills, spokespeople, proxies, promoting this. So here's another false flag in your face. They're even basically admitting it. Kind of like the CIA came out 3 months ago and said, yeah, we produced fake bin Laden videos. They came out, what, 4 or 5 months ago on CNN, Fox, AP. Yeah, we helped grow the opium in Afghanistan. Now, they don't just deny things. They come out and say, okay, we're setting up a world government. Yeah, we're going to take all or part of your pension funds. Okay, we have produced vaccines, chemicals and compounds we add to vaccines that reduce fertility. Yeah, just all public, yeah. What you going to do about it? Because they know the general public cannot focus on serious issues. People were put in their diapers in the last 50 years in front of television sets. They were raised by all these mindless, pap-filled programs. And so their culture, and this is going on worldwide, is one of being childlike, arrested development fools. So the system is so arrogant, they come out and say, yeah, Western governments launched this. We don't like Iran. They deserve it. But by the way, this shows you the threat to our infrastructure, so we're going to take over the Internet even more. And the Cybersecurity Act is so widespread. I mean, there's so many things it does. It also will make anyone involved in any type of Internet technology position, any IT professional, to take at least 6 months of upfront government-certified federal government training, totally federalizing the Internet at that point, and several weeks a year of continuing education where you're brainwashed and put on a power trip and given your security clearance. That's in the news today. Turned into a little minion. Oh, you're free market. You know, you work for the local internet company, but you're also a federal officer. And most people just love it. They just love the fact that, you know, they're James Bond now, even though they weigh 400 pounds and can't get out of their easy chair. This is the Stasi East German culture. It's why the government hired Marcus Wolf, the former head of the Stasi, 7 years ago to help set up Homeland Security before he died. Paid him over $1 million in 1 year alone. And so now, if you want to have any IT job under federal law, you now become a federal minion. Think about that. Thank you for joining us. I want to finish up with the stuxnet false flag launched for web takeover. That's the headline at prisonplanet.com. The InfoWars variant has the headline, Evidence Implicates U.S.-Israel in Stuxnet Attack on Iranian Nuke Plants. But to boil this down simply, I know you, the listeners, understand this, but when you're trying to explain it to your friends and family, there is a global corporate government shadow takeover that's been going on in the U.S. since at least 1913. In England, they've been in power for hundreds of years. A shadow government takeover of the entire infrastructure to the point of you won't be able to have a job, quote, in critical infrastructure. And that means if you work on the highways, if you work at a factory, if you basically everything is listed as critical infrastructure, that's now the jurisdiction of the federal government. It's self-controlled by the globalists who write the standards, and so now they have an excuse to be involved in every facet of your life. And then to come inside of your home and to control your car, they've got the carbon tax regime. This is all on record. And to work in IT that serves more than 100 people, that's what the Cybersecurity Act says, you will have to be federally licensed. And then you'll have to basically sign on to be a federal spy and agree to spy on people without pay to be part of this system. And now they'll train high school and college students as part of their federal service to be part of that. That is what is in the Homeland Security Cybersecurity Act. And the Pentagon is on record saying that they're launching cyber attacks against other governments, that they launch attacks against themselves, unannounced, to simulate vulnerabilities, and then that's used in the media to hype that real attacks are taking place. This is a very sophisticated takeover that's happening right now. But at the very simplistic level, who out there can't understand? Your friends, your family, your boss, your employees, your neighbors, your pastor. Who can't understand Israel launching, the evidence all shows, this super high-tech industrial superworm, and then our media is saying, see, we better let the feds take over the web even more. And when you read the Cybersecurity Act and other accompanying legislation and what the feds are just doing through their gravitas, and through the major corporations that they fund through corporate welfare, who are just adopting this inside their corporate structure without a law even being put in place. When you look at what they're doing, they are expanding their takeover of the web and under federal and international law demanding the codes to all new internet technologies under national security. But not so they can monitor terrorists, who in almost every case they're financing, controlling. Even sometimes the terrorists don't even know it's a criminal group above them funding them. Then the doors are open for them, like the underwear bomber, who witnesses saw the feds getting on the plane without a passport, without a visa. And then later it came out that that was true, that was the case. We're going to get some of those witnesses on that Christmas Day bombing, Kurt Haskell, back on very, very soon. And so now they can launch their attacks from within and cover up their attacks and then use those attacks as a pretext to expand their control. And there's news that's just a little glimmer of this today. You see it everywhere. And it's always announced and promoted in little compartmentalized chunks. So the public and even many people in IT don't see what's happening. We hear, oh, the U.S. seeks to ease internet wiretaps. And then you read the report, it's not just wiretaps. They want the code keys to Skype and to many other forms of internet communications. They want the code keys from hundreds of these little companies that have produced their own encryption. And the truth is, you see this in the news every month or so, there'll be a Canadian company that's got its own satellite phone system. They'll be bought out by an admitted CIA front company. Or they'll be bought out by IBM or Microsoft or Google, who are admitted globalist front companies. And then the government is given the code key to that. So when they claim they need the encryption keys to all this, it's a joke. How do I know all this? When they're funding this stuff, it's in the open. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 and some of the subsequent acts stated that giant, entire complexes in every major telecommunications facility, that all digital communications are passed through, faxes, email, landline telephones, cell phones, you name it, it's all passed through it, that by federal law, and $9 billion was paid to the major telecoms to put these structures in, and then NSA and other government employees walk in with a cover that they work for the phone company or the telecommunications company, and they walk right in and have their own offices in armored door facilities everywhere. And remember 4 years ago, it was the big PBS Frontline broke it, and, somebody at AT&T in San Francisco, there's this whole, floor of armored rooms, but they know that everybody's communications are being passed through it because they were told to build the specs to run all the communications into the room. Well, that was all in the Telecommunications Act. So that whistleblower, he found out about everyone having everything they do being looked at and read and tracked by computers with keyword software, because he saw the system being put in, being wired into the room. And he saw the specs as an engineer. And then later it was admitted. And federal courts blocked those lawsuits. So the entire infrastructure was built by these people, but there's a lot of private entrepreneurs and other programmers out there and engineers who've made a lot of new systems. And so you hear, oh, they need more wiretapping ability. They're already wiretapping and all. They want, under federal law, from the day something's allowed to be sold, to be able to approve it and to have the codes to it. And then what does the federal government do? It's run by a bunch of corrupt corporations. It gives it to the Chinese on record. It gives it to the Israelis. It gives it to other select governments and their corporations that are within those nations. So it's all about economic espionage, full spectrum dominance. It's about thieving. It's about cybersecurity, being able to shut down anybody they don't like, or any free speech they don't like, or any governments they don't like, and being able to attack our own infrastructure to get even more power. And you better understand that. This is one of the biggest issues out there. U.S. wants to make it easier to wiretap the internet. Charlie Savage, The New York Times. Federal law enforcement, national security officials are preparing to seek sweeping new regulations for the internet, arguing that their ability to wiretap criminal and terrorism suspects is going dark as people increasingly communicate online instead of by telephone. So they always claim the FBI has antiquated systems and all the rest of it. Well, of course, the crooks that run things don't want them having high-tech systems. But the intelligence agencies and the private DARPA systems and the Total Information Awareness Network and the top secret USA teams, they've got everything.